Good evening and welcome to the 2021-22 Resilience Series presentation. The series started back in 2015 when Ron Dillard invited our first Resilience speaker, Billy Mills, to come and talk. The criteria have been pretty simple. We look for people who have outstanding achievement, who would have qualified to be either a foundation or a CETA scholar. And we've had some national, international figures come and speak in the series. Tonight, as we'll meet in a moment, we have two local figures with international and national stature to speak. The committee that puts this on, Ron Dillard, raise your hand. Jonathan Hamilton. And Vernon Payne, who I don't think has showed up yet, so we caught him being tardy. The quality of resilience is something that is incredibly important to human beings. And we have two programs here at the university, the CETA Scholars and the Foundation Scholars, made up of students who exemplify that quality in tremendous amounts. Tonight's speakers, as I mentioned, are local. They not only would have qualified for the CETA or Foundation Scholars, they did. When we started this back in 2015, we knew that eventually we wouldn't have to look for people in the news or people in the media to find out who we could have come and speak. We would just look to our alums, look to our grads, and pick people, and that's where we are now. So the first of probably many years for this series to feature former or current alums. I think for all of us who know Bella and Kayla, this is an emotional day, and I am so happy to have them here. We got to spend a lot of time with them yesterday, up late, to put it mildly, up early. Okay, the official introductions. Everybody ready? I wrote it down just so I wouldn't skip anything. Bella Hunake is a trainer, advisor, and keynote speaker on human trafficking and mental health. As a member of the White House Advisory Council on Human Trafficking, Bella contributed to the landmark executive order on combating human trafficking and online child exploitation, and leads trafficking education and victim advocacy initiatives. She's currently employed at the Department of Health and Human Services, where she oversees policy initiatives regarding migrants. Bella sits on the board of directors for the NOMI Network and the Touch of Life Foundation. In 2020, she was awarded the International Abolitionist of the Year by NOMI Network. Bella provides consulting services and technical assistance to NGOs, domestic and foreign governments, to achieve the goals of the TVPA, which she'll speak about in a moment. She's a proud CETA scholar and twice Bronco, receiving her bachelor's and master's degrees from Western Michigan University. Kayla Roberts completed her bachelor's degree in psychology and interpersonal communications and her master's degree in occupational therapy from Western. I'm going to brag about her for a second. As an undergrad, she received one very sad AB and all the rest A's. So she graduated with only a 3.99 GPA. And I asked her if I could break for a report that, and she said yes. She's currently a pediatric occupational therapist at Lee Health in Cape Coral, Florida. Her proudest role, though, is being the mother to Joyce, the most adorable 4-year-old girl ever. That she is. She's also a sister to multiple human trafficking survivors. Kayla is a former ward of the state former foster kid, her term, not mine, and a CETA Scholar graduate. She works with foster youth and foster parents through her work and volunteers at a local human trafficking safe house. The subject of human trafficking is very uncomfortable for all of us. And tonight we are blessed to have two incredible people who have experienced that situation. One thing I forgot in my introductions, if I can postpone here, talk for a second. May I have the folks who work with and who are the CETA Scholars please stand. Would the Foundation Scholars please stand?
I'm here in spirit, guys. I'm here in spirit.
And Bella is going to lead us off.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for all of you for being here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, it's also kind of, are you cool or is it just me? Mark, thank you for hosting us this week. Sam, thank you for your great food. And for all of you, thank you for being here. I'm going to start off, this is like a conversation, but I created a PowerPoint just to better self-guide myself. So we're going to leave some time at the end just for Q&A. Don't ask us questions.
Now pleased to introduce an incredible survivor and the newest member of the U.S. Advisory Council on Human Trafficking, Bella Hunake. Hi, Bella.
Good afternoon. My name is Bella Hunake. Thank you, President Trump, Ms. Ivanka Trump, in the White House for organizing this important event. It is truly a great honor to be here to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. At age 13, I was brought into this country. I survived trafficking along with 19 other girls. Afterwards, I was placed in foster care. But this negative experience in my past should not wholly define who I am today. Today, I am a college graduate. Today, I am an American citizen. And today, I stand before you as the newest member of the U.S. Advisory Council on Human Trafficking. The council is composed of survivor leaders who bring their experience and expertise to advise and provide recommendations to the President's task force to monitor and combat trafficking in persons. We represent a diverse range of backgrounds and experiences, and we're sincerely grateful to this administration for appointing our current 8 members to support federal government efforts to prevent and improve trafficking programs and policies. We view the existence of this council as a victory for trafficking survivors in the federal government. This council is a model for survivor empowerment and survivor-centered approaches that other countries, states, and localities may learn from and adapt. This council shows in real and tangible ways how survivors can positively impact and inform anti-trafficking efforts at the highest levels of government. To truly be survivor-centered and informed means to not only prioritize survivors' needs or wishes and service delivery, it must also include meaningful collaboration with survivors to inform the design and implementation of the very policies and programs that affect them. No survivors should ever be viewed by their trafficking or lived experiences alone. We acknowledge the great strides the federal government has made in the last 20 years to combat trafficking, as well as that of other stakeholders. We look forward to continue to advise and collaborate with the task force to realize the goals of the TVPA and we encourage all of you to view our 2020 annual report, which will be released this April. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. And to end, I would like to share a statement and a quote from our council's chair, the Honorable Judge Long Robert. This is to the victims and survivors out there. It's never been your fault no matter what. So let go of that toxic shame. It doesn't belong to you. You are never too old, too lost, or too broken to begin healing today. Hope is key, and even if it starts out as small as a mustard seed, nurture hope. It'll save you. And most importantly, you're not alone. You're not alone. You're not.
Thank you, and God bless America. So that was sweet January 2020, I believe. I start as a kid. Oh, okay, that's me. As Mark mentioned, I'm Bella Hunake. I do consulting, training. I work for the federal government. And so now I live in Washington, D.C., but not long ago I used to live Western View Apartments. And then I lived, what was that really bad valley? I used to be in the really bad valleys with good food though. But so this is home. Like I felt like I came back home. I felt like I came back to family, right? Yes, my story. So, okay, first of all, let's go back one. When did slavery end? Can somebody remember, like, when was slavery ended? What year? When did it end? Never. Who said that? Thank you. Yes, slavery did not end. Now it just shows in its covert nature. And now, people recognize it as modern day, but there's nothing modern about it. It's been here, it's been existing, right? It's just transformed into systemic, in its systemic form. So, can somebody tell me what human trafficking is? Anybody, what do you know about human trafficking? Anything? Nobody know anything about human trafficking? Thank you.
Kidnapping and sexual and verbal and physical abuse.
Yeah.
And like slavery, because
Yeah.
you can't go anywhere.
Yeah. So yes, human trafficking comes in the form of commercial sexual exploitation. It comes in the form of labor trafficking / domestic servitude. And recently, we were working with the East Africa, particularly, there is child sacrifice for religious purposes. So all of that is recognized as human trafficking. And it's not a foreign concept, right? It's not happening in a different country. It's also happening here, as in our communities, our society, and it's also it's important for us to recognize it. So, it's human trafficking is when, it's not just pimps, it's when organizations, entities, individuals with power lure individuals, exploit them for the purposes of commercial sexual exploitation. So that's when we see online trafficking, which is a huge thing right now during the pandemic. That's where we see people who are brought in to work, and they are forced with the purpose of money, right? So that's what we recognize it as. And so it cuts across all gender or race. It doesn't discriminate against anyone. And so, it's gonna change. Okay, so yes, there has to be an act, there has to be means and for purpose, and that's what we recognize as trafficking, right? Again, forced labor, debt bondage, forced marriage, that's a lot happening, different geographic, different population. Organ removal, that's really huge in the elderly. Child soldiers, forced begging. In the US though, we focus on these two, the sexual exploitation and the forced labor, and also the domestic servitude. I work for HHS federal level, and we see a lot of the child soldiers, we see a lot of the forced marriage, my position on the council, as mentioned, we see a lot of organ removal or child sacrifice for the purpose of like religion. So we see a lot of that. Okay, so I showed that video earlier because the TVPA, this is a federal mandate that governed, that was signed into law that I benefited from, that recognizes trafficking as a federal crime. It's always happened, but there wasn't a landmark that allowed for perpetrators of trafficking to be charged with a crime. So this law allowed for someone to be prosecuted, and they focused on the 3 Ps, which are protection, prosecution, prevention. And this introduces legislation for both federal government and state government. It focuses on services for victims. And it's been reauthorized 2003, 5, 8, 2013. And right now we are also working on its reauthorization because these years didn't account for COVID-19, right? And when COVID started, you guys, it's been, people are very creative. They want to exploit people. There's a lot of cyber trafficking. So somebody can be in America and pay for commercial sexual exploitation in Russia, and they can be abusing that many times over and over. So the 2021 and 2019 and 2020 reauthorization is going to focus on international prosecution. Who's going to be hosting that? Who's going to be the entity, the government in charge of that? And so that's an effort that I and myself on the council are leading, including with the new administration are leading. And it also focuses on awareness, right? I always talk about that. Whatever you know about trafficking, by the time you receive new information, it's already outdated. So our goal is to make sure that there's always new awareness. You know that traffickers are always strategizing, and I'm sure that whenever we have meetings, not here, but there's someone always, like especially large crowd, there's always someone who is learning tactics to make sure that they're working to combat the information that we're providing. And so that's why the emphasis is always on global awareness, on the trends that you're seeing, the type of people that are trafficked. And it's not just migrants, no, it's not just people in foster care, no, it's not just, it doesn't discriminate. So I wanted to focus on this law because it guides everything, right? I am a recipient of these services, like the reason why Kayla, and she'll speak on this too, being foreign survivors of trafficking. There's a reason why we stay here, and because of these laws, these federal laws that allow things like that to happen. So we have to continue supporting these laws to account for people that are being trafficked in 2022, because they might not fall under here, right? That's what legislative reauthorizations allow. Okay, that's me. That's me again. Okay, so I show you that video. In the beginning, I talk about human trafficking, but numbers don't tell people's stories, right? People tell people's stories. That's why I'm here. My story didn't start when I was speaking or working with government or presidents or Congress or Attorney General. My story didn't start here. My story actually didn't start. Before I was a trafficking victim, I was someone's daughter, I was a sister, I was a friend, right? This is the last memory I had of my little me. This is me. I think this was 2 days, I think I was 9. This was my passport picture. The FBI who was in charge of my case gave me this for this presentation, so thank you. This was me. This was me. I think I was 9 here, and this last memory I had of myself, my parents, my sibling, right? And so I talked to you guys about the law of the TVPA. I talked to you guys about the different ways that trafficking impact individuals, because I've lived it, right? What guides my effort is my personal experience and the kind of trace that it leaves. I share a little bit of my story in the video. I try not to talk about it in DC so much because people don't care there. They don't. So it draws me back to you all because you all can make a bigger difference than people in DC that I'm trying to get to change, right? They work for you guys. You don't work for them. So my story started here. When I was 9, I was trafficked by a relative of mine, where I experienced everything that I talked to you guys about for the purposes of recruiting, right? Because sometimes I think exploitation can be packaged as love so much that you don't know the difference, especially if you're a minor. And so that was my last memory of me. This is when I fell victim to trafficking. So a lot of you hear an accent. This is my little village. This is my village right here. I'm originally from West Africa, Togo. How many of you know where Togo is? Oh my God, just 5 people? Okay, let me see that hands again. Okay, 10. Okay, good. That's better. Yeah, so I'm from West Africa, Togo. And so from Togo, I was trafficked all the way to, I don't know where I put my US map, but how many of you know where Jersey is? New Jersey. Okay. So I was trafficked from Togo all the way to New Jersey, right, with 22 other people. And so that is the nature of trafficking. For you to traffic children from continent to another continent, it requires a lot of power and money. But that's not just, my story, I talk about it a lot, it's not unique, it's not special, it's not different. Because my story is that of many, many people that some of you may know, some of you might not know, just like Kayla. The reality is that human trafficking consists of identification. They prey on vulnerability, whatever that is, and then they package that as whatever care, and they use that to exploit for the purpose of money or commercial sexual exploitation. So that's just the pattern I follow. My story followed as well. So this is the room that 22 of us slept in. Can you see the picture? This is the room that everything took place in. I got this picture from the agent that helped me at the time. This was in a beautiful house in Jersey. You can't see, oh yeah, this is the house. So if you drove past this house, you think something was going on there? Would you assume that? This was in an affluent neighborhood in New Jersey. We had a gate. I don't know if you can see it from here. We had a gate, right? So when we think about human trafficking, sometimes it's not the person at Walmart. Have you seen that Facebook page? The person at Walmart that is gonna kidnap you and they're following you and you're scared, from a professional side and personal side, that's not how human traffickers work. That's not how their recruitment work, and the data doesn't support that. So, and that actually does a disservice to the phenomenon than otherwise. But this is the house, right? And that was the room that all of us slept in. And this is where we are day in and day out for years, for a long time. Again, while my story is not special, this is the realities of many, many victims. Today, my story didn't start where I am now. It started then, and then moved here. So this is where we were for many, many years. And the day came where the FBI raided the house, and they came. There was a back door somewhere right here. And they came through there, and it was helicopters all around, and we tried to run away through the garage. This is a car that we were all hiding every day. It had like something over it, so we just get under so that we can be transported out. And so that was my reality for a very long time, and I would always wonder if people knew, if people were okay, if they knew what was happening in this beautiful house in Jersey, in that room, but they never knew, right? And so when my story shifts from there, then I got into foster care. I got into foster care after trafficking, after exploitation. Oh, that's me again. I got into foster care after exploitation, and I wanted to make something of myself. I wanted to make a change. I didn't know how to. So I transitioned from trafficking to foster care, and this was my freshman year at Western. This was the first year at Western at the Senior Scholars Program. And then from Western, I went to Spain, where I studied abroad. In Spain, here is me again. And then from there, who knows who this is? President Dunn. Then that was when I graduated with my bachelor's degree at Western. And then we saw those too. Okay, so post-trafficking, right? So I put this timeline here for a reason. So 2009, when I was rescued, I was arrested because we broke a federal law, right? All of us as a collective, we broke a federal law. So back then, the TVPA didn't cover people like myself who were migrant immigrants' children. They didn't have a law that defined what happened to us when we're found, where we go, what happened to our reality, if we get immigration status or not, if we're returned to our countries or not, if our parents, this was huge, if our parents, biological parents, will be prosecuted for international child trafficking. All this law didn't cover that. So in 2019, we broke an immigration law. We broke a lot of law, fraud, prostitution. Some of the girls were charged with prostitution. Some of them were charged with the ones who were 18 and older. So we broke an immigration law, so we went immigration jail. Then we went to the judicial process that consisted of both immigration, criminal, and civil. And so then there was foster care, and then this is Western, this is family reunification, and this is the present. Right? And so I share all of that to share with you that, you know, many of you as we transition back from everybody's assimilating back to their jobs post-COVID, keep in mind that there are people who were trafficked at the beginning of the pandemic and present day, right? And so how do you educate yourself to make sure that you keep passing on the torch? How do you educate yourself so that they get the support they need, right? And one of the things that I put there is to ask your Congress representative about bills being passed. I share with you guys that I live in Washington, D.C. now. That's not my bubble, right? This is my bubble. I'm comfortable here. I can talk to you guys here. But I really urge you, if you haven't already done so, and all of us are struggling with different things, but keep in mind that there are people right now as we sitting here, not from Togo, not from China, not from anywhere. They are from your communities and they're being trafficked right now. And as we move back, we worry about our jobs, how much we're gonna make, just like things that may not be so, I would say, inconsequential, because their lives depend on what we do. One of the things you can do is education, is awareness. Whatever I tell you about trafficking right now, by next month, it will be outdated. And so you have to take on yourself to keep educating yourself about what trafficking is, the forms of exploitation, the things that government can do to combat, to prevent, to support, but also things that you can do, right? I talk about services. I identify as Senior Scholars because there were a group of people that helped me become who I am today. My story didn't stop when I was found to be a victim. Somebody had to be there every step of the way. So what is your capacity to help people who have been trafficked? Can you mentor someone? Can you serve as a translator? Can you serve as just a support? It doesn't always have to be financial. So that's another way. Or can you call your congressperson and say, hey, what are you doing? How do you represent our jurisdiction? Congressional level, what bills are you supporting to help victims of trafficking? That effort goes a very long way, right? That sort of advocacy goes a very long way. I have different ways up here, you can read it, but that's one thing I wanted to focus on is what steps can you take to make sure that someone who's being trafficked right now is not defined by what's happening right now 10 years from now, right? So that trafficking isn't the only memory they remember. So that one day they can be in front of you or others and say, because of your actions, I'm not just defined as a victim of trafficking. And so I will stop there. We're gonna have a Q&A at the end. But now I'm gonna pass the mic over to my dearest friend, Kayla, for her to talk to you about human trafficking.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me over here today. Can you guys hear me? So I'm going to share just my personal journey of the human trafficking. So I never thought, I have so much gratitude, so much emotion for being here today. Just like Bella said, here is home. I have so much memories, so much things I have learned at here, being a CETA scholar and graduated from Western. So I never thought I would be back here today as a speaker. And I remember when I first started as CETA scholar, sitting at, where you guys are today. And every year, native speaker come and, speaking at a resiliency program. And I remember as a student sitting down there and just in awe of the speakers up here and telling us their life stories and how they have overcome their struggles and to get where they are. And I remember sitting there and just so inspired that I vowed that someday I'm gonna make it to the other side of it. Someday I'm gonna be up there, and someday I'm gonna make everybody that have gotten me to this place proud. And someday I'm going to make it. And little did I know the path that life would take me, and that I have become so strong and independent today. So that's where I am today. As Mark said, I'm an OT. I live in Florida, but it didn't start here, So I'm going to take you back to where I started. So I grew up in a very rural village in China. So I grew up in a very dysfunctional family with very emotionally and physically abusive dad and a very neglectful mom. And in a culture where the practice and norms of the society promotes the male dominance, and the Chinese, family norms promotes the unity of the family, but while placing the woman in a subservient and uneducated position. So the second I was born, because I was a girl, I was a disappointment from the very second when they saw me. So for my whole life in China, I was reminded that over and over again, that I was unworthy and I was useless because I was a girl. And so for my 13 years in China, that my dad had over and over again told me, why do we even have you? Why? What's your worth? What's your value? So for the 13 years, I have that question over and over in my head. Why? What's my purpose? What's my value? Why am I here today? So after 12 years, I had a baby brother. My family decided that they wanted to have a boy to change the luck of our family. And so they risked everything just to have their precious boy. But life didn't get any better like they had kind of expected after they had their boy. And life got worse for me. My dad lost his job because of the one-child policy. And he became angrier, he became more resentful. And my mom got sick with cancer. So when I thought life couldn't be any worse, when I thought this is it, my mom passed away from cancer. And she and we had a very unhealthy relationship. My entire goal, my entire existence was to get stronger someday to rescue her from that situation. I wanted to save her. That was my life goal. So when she passed away, I lost my identity. I didn't know who I was. I was so lost and I was in so much pain and I just felt so hopeless. Until one day, my dad took me out of school and he took me to a building, took me to a city. I've never left my village and my town at that point, and my dad took me out of school, took me to a city, and then we just walked into a building, and there was this guy sitting there I've never met before, didn't know why I was there. I just remember I had to walk around, the guy looked at me, and then 20 minutes later we left. And I went back to school and didn't know what that meeting was, and a couple weeks later, my dad pulled me out of school permanently and said, you are leaving tomorrow. And that's all he said. Here today. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So I'm going to share just my personal journey of the human trafficking. So I never thought, I have so much gratitude, so much emotion for being here today. Just like Bella said, here is home. I have so much memories, so much things I have learned at here, being a CETA scholar and graduated from Western. So I never thought I would be back here today as a speaker. And I remember when I first started as a CETA scholar, sitting at, where you guys are today, and every year they have a speaker come and, speaking at the resiliency program. And I remember as a student sitting down there and just in awe of the speakers up here and telling us their life stories and how they have overcome their struggles and to get where they are. And I remember sitting there and just so inspired that I vowed that someday I'm gonna make it to the other side of it. Someday I'm gonna be up there, and someday I'm gonna make everybody that have gotten me to this place proud. That someday I'm going to make it. And little did I know the path that life would take me, and that I have become so strong and independent today. So that's where I am today. As Mark said, I'm a OT. I live in Florida, but it didn't start here, so I'm going to take you back to where I started. So I grew up in a very rural village in China. So I grew up in a very dysfunctional family with very emotionally and physically abusive dad and a very neglectful mom. And in a culture where the practice and norms of the society promotes the male dominance, and the Chinese, family norms promotes the unity of the family, but while placing a woman in a subservient and uneducated position. So the second I was born, because I was a girl, I was a disappointment from the very second when they saw me. So for my whole life in China, I was reminded that over and over again, that I was unworthy and I was useless because I was a girl. And so for my 13 years in China, that my dad had over and over again told me, why do we even have you? Why? What's your worth? What's your value? So for the 13 years, I have that question over and over in my head. Why? What's my purpose? What's my value? Why am I here today? So after 12 years, I had a baby brother. My family decided that they wanted to have a boy to change the luck of our family. And so they risked everything just to have their precious boy. But life didn't get any better like they had kind of expected after they had their boy. And life got worse for me. My dad lost his job because of the one-child policy. And he became angrier, he became more resentful. And my mom got sick with cancer. So when I thought life couldn't be any worse, when I thought this is it, my mom passed away from cancer. And she and we had a very unhealthy relationship. My entire goal, my entire existence was to get stronger someday to rescue her from that situation. I wanted to save her. That was my life goal. So when she passed away, I lost my identity. I didn't know who I was. I was so lost and I was in so much pain and I just felt so hopeless. Until one day, my dad took me out of school and he took me to a building, took me to a city. I've never left my village and my town at that point, and my dad took me out of school, took me to a city, and then we just walked into a building, and there was this guy sitting there I've never met before, didn't know why I was there. I just remember I had to walk around, the guy looked at me, and then 20 minutes later we left. I went back to school and didn't know what that meeting was, and a couple weeks later, my dad pulled me out of school permanently and said, you are leaving tomorrow. And that's all he said, you're leaving tomorrow. And so he said, you're done here. It's time for you to pay back. It's time to live up to your worth and your value. It's time to pay back for the 13 years that I've raised you. So later on, I found out that was my interview with a trafficker, that I passed the interview and I got selected. And so at that point, when he told me that you're leaving, I had so many emotions going through me. It was really scary because I've never left my village. But at that point, I was mostly relieved to get out of there because I knew if I had stayed, I would not make it. So I was scared, but kind of looking forward to end that phase of my life. So I left my hometown with, I remember, 2 outfits hand-me-down from my cousin and a train ticket. So I had a little bag with me. My dad dropped me off at the train station. That's it. He didn't say bye, didn't say see you later, didn't say good luck, didn't say, stay safe. I hopped on the train and rode it all the way until it stopped. When the train stopped, I got out. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what's the next step, what's happening. I looked around and there was a man, a guy I never knew, I never met before, but he had a sign with my name on it. So I was like, okay, then I, supposed to go with this guy because he had my name on it. So I went with him. Then I met up with 30 other people that was in a group that was going to be trafficked. And my time with those 30 people, the traffickers were giving us new names, new passport, new identity, and new family stories. So in order for us to apply for the traffickers to apply for visa to come over to leave the country, to come over to the States, we need to have a story. Why, right? why would they grant 30 people to come over here? So the story, the cover-up story we were international performers. And so 30 of us, we were from very rural areas. We were not very highly educated. And we had never left our village, let alone to take dance classes to become a performer, right? So we were trained day and night to become learning dance routines, and we trained day and night to memorize those routines. And at the same time, we had to memorize the stories they were giving us. This is who you are now. This is your life story. Those are your parents. This is your city, and this is your passport. This is your identity now. And we would get quizzed on. And if we failed, there's punishment if you couldn't remember your name. And at the same time, when we were there, we were told that there's nobody else out there for us. Our family has given us up, so there's no one else out there that will come and save us and rescue us. No one would ever believe us if we ever tried to ask for help. And if we ever tried to run away, that they would kill us, and they know where our family lives. And the police would never believe us if we tell a story. And in China, you don't ever want to go to, you don't ever want to get to put in the jail system. People disappear in the system. And so they were threatening us that, if you go to the police, they won't believe you, they will arrest you, and you will just be gone. So all of us just, follow their order, did what we have to do, and listened, and learn the new name, learn a new story. And then we traveled to Mexico. And when we got to Mexico, the Chinese traffickers put us up for auction. So the Mexican traffickers, so all of those stories I learned later. And I don't know how, how the auction works, but I knew there was like a bidding war for the auction to buy 30 of us. And so we were trafficked over the border from Mexico to the US. And I remember, so this whole time I didn't speak any English. I had no idea, or Spanish. I had no idea what's going on. I just knew, okay, we are moving location again. Okay, we have to do this again. So it was a constant move. It was a constant, okay, here's your new story now. Here's your new name now. And so we trafficked over. When we across the border, we were put into the motel. And I remember, and the plan was when it gets dark, we were going to get in the van and then travel to move on to the next location again. And I just remember we were sitting in the motel, waiting, and all of a sudden there was a knock on the door, and then the traffickers screamed like, "Run!" And all of us just started running, trying to get out. And then I remember, there was nowhere to go when they were at the door. So all of us were, I remember sitting in the police car, not knowing what's going on. Everything, nobody speak, none of the police speak Chinese, and I just remember just in the days of, okay, now what? So they brought us to the police station, trying to process us and trying to get a story. And I remember I had no idea what's going on. I didn't have, they were asking, they got a translator, and they were asking us, who's your family, who's your contact? Let them, let them know this is what's going on. So some of the people in the group called, let the family know, okay, this, we got arrested, and this is what's happening, this is where we are now. I didn't have a phone number. I had nobody to call. I didn't know, okay, what do I do now? What's next? And because we were minors, we couldn't stay at the police station for more than 48 hours. So some of the minors got transported in a van, and they sent us to the juvie. And I remember, so all of this, I still didn't know. I didn't know if I'm staying there permanently. I didn't know what was happening. I just remember we got out of the van, and then I still remember burned into in my brain. We walk into the juvie, the front of the juvie, and I remember a kid, and there was two officers was pinning this kid down with a baton hitting on the wall. And at that moment, I was like, I think that was a reality kind of hits me. I was like, oh my gosh, is this gonna be my life now? But we only stayed there for a couple days for them to process us. And I ended up, next thing I knew, I ended up in International Children's Center in Chicago. And that's where I stayed for about 10 months. And this is where I started learning English, kind of exposed to a little bit of the culture, American culture. And this is also where I started in the system. I started my immigration asylum, started the whole process. And when I got to the center, this is the first time in months since I left, I was able to get hold of my dad and talk to him to let him know, okay, like this is what's happening. I got arrested and I'm at a center right now. And I still remember the first conversation I had with him. When I finally got hold of him on the phone, the first thing he said to me, he's like, I just knew it. I just knew you didn't have it in you. I just knew that you would let me down. How could you get arrested? I can't believe this is just my luck. And the second thing he said to me, can you run away? Can you leave now? Can you go? And I told him, no. I mean, the whole place was security, was locked down. You can't open a window without an alarm going off. I said, no. He was so upset. He said, with me staying at a center, I wasn't making him any money. I wasn't making the traffickers any money. So when I didn't listen to him, he sold my contact information to the traffickers. So when you're at the center, only your family can call and contact you. No one else can. And so when he sold my information to the trafficker, they called and pretended to be my family so they could get hold of me. So the trafficker got hold of me at the center, and they threatened me to run away. They wanted me to run away, and they had hired an attorney to represent me, and they also found a fake family to sponsor me out. And they told me that if I didn't listen to them, if I didn't follow them, they help people in the US. They help people in places that I would never guess, that will always find me, that will always get me. And if I don't listen to them, that they know where my family is in China. And so when all of that didn't work, the center later on found out that this whole time I wasn't talking to my dad, I was talking to the trafficker, so that communication stopped. And when my dad found out that none of that worked, the last time I talked to him, he told me that there's no home for me to return anymore. Because at one point I told him, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't know anybody. I am homesick. I didn't speak any English. I want to go home. I want to go home. And he told me, no, there's no home for you anymore. There is, if you come back, there's nothing for you here. And then he had told me that he had heard another girl in the US that when the government trying to deport her, she committed suicide and they let her stay. So he said, maybe I should try that. Maybe I should try to kill myself so that for a chance to stay. So at that point, I knew that I was officially alone, that I had to look out for myself, that the person that I thought would have my back, the person I thought would, at least in this situation, that protect me, had turned his back on me. And so I felt so heartbroken and so lost and so helpless that, okay, what now? What's my first step? What's my next step? And this is when the process of my foster family journey started. They, because of my situation with my biological family, the center had found me, applied for me to go into the foster care system. And so when they told me that they had found a foster family for me, they were willing to take me in Michigan, I was ecstatic. I was like, maybe this is it. This is what it's supposed to be. I had hope and dreams. I was like, this is my second chance, having that family that I had never had. I have always dreamed about. This is it. I remember so excited meeting this family, so happy, and I spent about a school year with that family, and during that time, I did everything I could to be part of the family. I wanted so bad for them to accept me, for them to love me, and for them to claim me as part of their family. And that didn't work out so well. I remember coming home one day from school, and the case manager was sitting at the desk, at the table. I walked in from the door, and I was like, why are you here? This is not a monthly visit. Why are you here? And the alarm goes off in my brain. I was like, no, I don't want to see you here. Something bad's happening. So they ask, to sit down, and then they say, you're leaving tomorrow. You are moving out tomorrow. Like you're not here anymore. You are leaving tomorrow. And at that point, I felt like such a fool. I felt I have given it all. I have given them my heart and everything. I let them in, and that they had let me down. And that was when I decided that it's going to be up to me, that I'm going to do this by myself. I don't need anyone else in my life, that I have to look out for myself. I got it. I'm just going to protect myself because no one else is, and I put up such a big wall around me. I was like, that's it, I'm done. And so, despite my dream of the family was shattered, I met the first person in school. When I went to high school, I met the first person. She was a teacher. She saw me, and then she took me under her wings, and she introduced me to American culture. I remember she and I, we would take field trips just to the community. She would take me to the little shops in town. We would just get ice cream, for our class, just to get ice cream. And I was like, what kind of class is this? So I thought that was American education. I was like, what is this? So, but she took me under her wing, and she introduced me. She's like, this is the life that you're supposed to have. This is American culture. This is the community that you're going to be living in. So she was the first person, saw me, and she took me, and she said, no, this is not it. This is not where your story ends. You're going to go further in life. So when she found out that I couldn't stay with my first foster family anymore, they had found me another family in Grand Rapids. She said, no, you're not leaving. She didn't want me to leave the community that I had built in Grand Haven. And she said, no, you're not leaving. So she's the one, she's the one who showed me love, and she's the one who believed in me. she's the one who found my second foster family for me. And I remember by that point, I could care less. I didn't really care who's coming my way. I just wanted to be in the system until I was 18 so I can make my own choices, so I can fight for myself, I can make decisions for myself. So I remember meeting my second foster family. I was ready to fight. I put a wall up so high, so thick. I put my armor on. I was ready, going there. I was ready to fight. And I remember the first time meeting my foster family, the second one, they were so excited. And I stopped them. I was like, and I said, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you are. I don't care what you're gonna do with me for the next years. At that point, I was almost 16, so I was like, okay, I just need 2 more years. If you can accept me for 2 more years, great. If not, that's fine too. I said, I just need to buy my time until I turn 18. And I asked them, I don't care what's their plan with me. I just wanted to know the second you have thought that you don't want me in your family anymore, I need to know. So they were just shocked. They say, no, like, you're part of the family. Like, we decided to take you in, you're part of the family. I was like, yeah, I heard that before. So I didn't believe them. So for the first year and a half, I had a bag packed under my bed. I was ready to go. And I remember for the first couple years, every single day, I asked my parents, why did you take me in? Why? What did you see in me? Why did you open your home to me? Why did you choose me? And what kind of value did you see in me? What's my worth? Why did you, how could you? And how could you love someone who is so broken and so unlovable? I just could not understand. I could not wrap my head around it. I fought so hard. I resist so hard. And I didn't believe them. I didn't believe they would stay around. I didn't believe the word that they said. So, despite my doubt, my resistance and disbelief, they stayed. They wrapped their arm around me when I tried to push them away. They stayed, they told me they loved me when I told them that I could care less about them. They stayed. They stayed to show me that they were, they weren't going to give up on me. They stayed that I was worth it. I was worth their love. And they stayed to show me that the definition of a family, the definition of unconditional love. And they, show me and then that they love me because of me, not because of how much money I'm going to make them. What's my worth? What's my value? What can I contribute? They saw me, just me, nothing else. And they still choose to love me. And it was such a foreign concept to me that it took me a couple years to finally unpack that bag under my bed. To finally say that, okay, I'm here to stay. And because of them providing that stability and love, that I started to dream about the future for the first time. I started to think about, oh my gosh, what can I do now? I have the space, I have the love, and I have the support. Okay, what's next? So I graduated from high school with honor when I was living with them, and that was a big moment for me. I didn't think. So the graduation, I was so happy, but at the same time, it was really painful. because everybody around me was moving on. They were planning their futures. They were doing college applications. They were doing college visits. They were taking ACT. They were taking SAT. They would talk about all the dreams, right? They were going to have. What's their next step? They were ready to fly. I was stuck. I was stuck. I was still battling with immigration system. So I didn't have a social security number. I didn't have a state ID. I didn't have a driver license, so I couldn't drive, I couldn't work. And I remember I went to my academic advisor in high school and I was asked, okay, you know, you had all this meeting with everyone else to prepare for the college. So, you know, when are you gonna have this meeting with me? And he told me, oh, you know, don't even bother, because you're not going. Like, you don't have it. You don't have what you need to go. Like, you don't have it. So don't bother. Like, you know, this is where you're going to stay. The high school education is the best you're going to get. This is your life. I was so mad. I was so mad. I'm sorry, I didn't come this far for you to tell me this is it for you. And so I called community colleges, I called universities, and everybody, they were so excited. It's like, oh yeah, this is a, you know, application process, it's what you need to do. And then when they heard, oh, you don't have the social security number, oh, you don't have the state ID. Oh, well, like, you know, give us a call back. Like, when you get, you know, keep working on your status, and then when you, give us a call back when you get it. I was feeling so defeated. It was harder and harder to hold on to hope at that point. And when I was ready to give up, I heard a counselor at JRCC that was helping minority kids to get into the higher education. So I got her name, Anna. I called her, and I was so nervous when I called her. And she said, yeah, you know, so I set up an appointment with her, and I was so afraid to hear the word no. And I was ready to present my case, I was ready to convince her, but before I needed to do any of that, she told me, yes, we'll figure it out, yes, you're coming, and yes. I was going to school, I was going to continue with my education. So when I get the acceptance letter from JRCC, I was ecstatic. I was like, oh my gosh, another dream, another step. But a new problem arrives. I lived in Grand Haven. Grand Rapids is 45 minutes from Grand Haven. Well, I don't have a driver license, so how do I get from Grand Haven to Grand Rapids every semester, every day? And I was so scared. I was like, okay, I had to figure out something out because I've gotten this far. I got accepted it, I have a spot, I have signed up for classes, but how do I get there? And during this whole process, I learned to lean on other people and ask for help. And I'm not very good at that. I'm not very good at asking and showing the vulnerability of like, hey, I need help. But this whole process kind of forced me to kind of step out of that comfort zone. And every semester, I met a new person. Every semester, I met someone that I could carpool to get me from Grand Haven to Grand Rapids. And during those carpool, the rides came out some of the best relationships, some of the best conversations that I have had. And so I spent almost 3 years at Grand Rapids Community College, and I made some amazing relationships there, made some amazing friends. And at that point, a lot of friends are moving on with their higher education. They were going to go to universities, and they were, pursuing their dreams. And Anna called me into her office and had that conversation with me. Okay, Kayla, you have spent long enough time here, you've taken enough classes. I think it's time for us to move you on to the next step. And I was like, yes, great, but how? because I still didn't have any kind of legal status. And she's like, well, she showed me a newspaper article that just came out about Western had this new program with CETA scatter programs that if you're a foster care kid, that you are qualified to apply for this program. And I was like, great, maybe that's my answer. I said, but what about the application part of it? How do I apply? And she said, well, she said, I've been working with this guy at Western. I have a couple students that I have sent over there with this guy. You know, maybe we can call him and then see what he says. And I was sitting in Anna's office. And then Anna introduced me. This is Mark. This is Kayla. And that was the first time I heard, before I met Mark, I heard his voice, Mark. And I was so nervous. Before Mark heard my story, before Mark heard my situation, the ins and outs of anything, Mark told me, you're coming to Western. You're gonna be a Bronco next year. We're gonna get you here. And I have countless no's in my life. I have so many people, so many obstacles tell me, no, you can't, because you're a girl, because you are a illegal immigrant, because you've been trafficked. No, you can't. But I have a few yeses that I will forever remember and forever grateful because of those few yeses that have changed my life forever. So I started my time at Western and I thrived. I loved every second of it. CETA gave me a community, a place where I feel I belong, a place where I didn't have to explain who I am, a place I didn't have to pretend, I can just be. I took as many opportunities and I took as many classes as I could when I was at Western. During that time I also figured out that, okay, I want to pursue OT, I want to go to graduate school. And the last year of my undergrad at Western, I was put on a deportation list. And the last year, because I was on a deportation list, so every 3 months, I had to meet with my deportation officer. I had to drive to Detroit to meet with him and had to kind of check in with him. And every meeting, I was sitting in his office, that he reminds me that I was a criminal, I didn't deserve to be there, that I didn't belong. And there's nothing I could do to tell him, you're wrong. I couldn't fight back because he told me that if I did, he can throw me in jail right now. So I had to sit there and listen to all of that. And so graduation with my undergrad from Western was bittersweet. I was so proud of myself that I've gotten that far, a college graduate, something that I've never even dreamed of. And there I was, that something has become a reality. And but sad that I feel stuck once again. What now? The immigration was, my attorney had told me that immigration, that was the end of my road. My last appeal has got denied. That there was no more appeals, no more file, nothing more to move on to, nothing more to try. And they called it as a floater, that you cannot get the status, but they couldn't deport you either. So you just floating through the system. And I was like, okay, now what? Like, now what? I felt like I have so much to give and so much more to learn, that this can't be the end of it. I was feeling so angry and so mad and so helpless at the same time. And I started asking the question of why? what did I do? How did I get to here? How did I get so stuck? Why couldn't I move on? And I had to figure out, okay, what am I gonna do? What's my options? I didn't want to quit. I didn't want to stop after I'd come this far. So I decided to go back to JRCC and take the classes, or the prerequisite classes, to get myself ready for the graduate program when I was ready. So a turning point, a local news had heard about my story and it picked up. And after 11 years, I finally got my human trafficking visa, finally got approved. So after 11 years, so I was 23 years old when I got my driver's license. I was ecstatic the first time when I was driving myself to school. So I went to, I drove myself to school, and that's when I started my OT program. And I finished that in Grand Rapids on campus. And I remember the feeling of so much gratitude and the overwhelming feeling of that I'm driving myself to school. It just something, I just couldn't put into words. I graduated from Western OT program, and I got an offer of job at one of the clinical sites that I was doing at Florida, so I accepted, and that's where I am now. So this whole process of being here and of preparing for this presentation, and when Mark called me to ask me to speak, the negative emotion of self-doubt kind of came in of, are you sure, Mark? Are you really sure that I have what you're looking for? Are you really sure that I have made it? And I started questioning of, what have I done? Have I done enough? Do I have do I have the resilience? Do I have everything, the speakers that I've heard? Do I have enough to stand up here to talk? And all those negative emotions that kind of sets in. And I also realized that I am really good at pushing forward, and I'm really good at setting that vision of happiness of that, telling myself, just keep going, keep going. And I can feel happy, I can feel safe, I can feel like I have accomplished something when I achieve that goal. And this whole process kind of helped me to realize that it forced me to take that pause and forced me to kind of look back of what I have gone through to get here today, and what that all the emotions and all the struggles that I've been through to get to where I am today. That the place, the home, the safety that I'm constantly looking for, it just took me a while and took me a second kind of to process it, that I have made it, that I have beat the odds to stand up here today, that I should take the time to celebrate. I am here today because I have people in my life saw past my immigration, saw past my struggles, and